It's a normal afternoon on Earth. It's 66 million years ago and the sun is out over what will one day be called Mexico. A triceratops is chewing on some ferns by a river. Somewhere nearby, a small feathered dinosaur is chasing a bug through the grass. Nobody knows anything is wrong. There are no clouds, there is no warning. In the sky, so far away that no eye on Earth could see it coming, a rock the size of a mountain is falling toward the planet at about 20 kilometers every second. That's faster than a bullet. Way faster. In about 7 minutes, this ordinary afternoon is going to become the worst day in the history of life on Earth. And here's the twist we're going to get to by the end. Dinosaurs did not all die that day. Some of them are alive right now. And one might be sitting outside your window. Let's go! The thing nobody tells you about that day. Here's the misconception baked right into the question. We hear the day the dinosaurs went extinct. And we picture every single dinosaur, everywhere on Earth, dying at the exact same moment, like someone flipped a switch. That's close to true, but it's not the whole truth. And the missing piece is the most interesting part of this whole story. What actually happened is that almost every dinosaur species died. Not all of them. A tiny handful found a way through. And figuring out how they did it tells us something huge about what it really takes to survive when the whole world breaks at once. But first, we need to understand just how bad that day actually was, because asteroid hits Earth does not come close to covering it. The rock that hit us was about 10 kilometers wide. Picture a mountain not falling gently but slamming into the earth at more than 60 times the speed of sound. It hit near what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, in a spot scientists now call the Chicxulub crater. The energy released was greater than 1 billion nuclear bombs going off at once. In the first few seconds, the impact punched a hole in the Earth's crust and threw up a wall of melted rock and dust higher than the atmosphere itself. Within minutes, a shockwave flattened everything for hundreds of kilometers around. A tsunami taller than a 10-story building raced out across the ocean. Earthquakes, far stronger than anything we've ever recorded, shook the ground on every continent. And falling back down from space, tiny bits of melted rock rained across the entire planet. So hot that they set forests on fire from Canada to South America. Scientists who study this moment have found a thin layer of ash and a rare metal called iridium in rock all over the world, sitting at exactly this point in time, like a fingerprint left by the impact. That layer is why we're sure this really happened. But here's the part that made it a true planet-wide disaster, and not just a very bad day. All that dust and soot from the fires got thrown up into the sky, and it stayed there. For months, maybe years. A thick curtain of dust blocked out the sun. Without sunlight, plants couldn't grow. Without plants, plant-eating dinosaurs starved. Without plant eaters, meat-eating dinosaurs starved too. Temperatures dropped hard and fast, all around the globe, in what scientists sometimes call an impact winter. This is the real killer. Not the fireball, not the tsunami. The slow collapse of the entire food chain, in the dark and the cold. Over months that must have felt endless. About 3 out of every 4 species on Earth died. That includes every dinosaur bigger than a chicken, all the giant swimming reptiles in the oceans, and the flying reptiles called pterosaurs that had ruled the skies for over 150 million years. So, how did anything make it through that? Let's go through the moves that actually worked. Move 1, be small. Size turned out to be one of the biggest factors in who lived and who died. Big animals need a lot of food every single day just to stay alive, and in a world where plants had stopped growing and prey had mostly vanished, that was a death sentence. Small animals need way less food, and they can survive much longer on almost nothing. Most of the animals that made it through this disaster weighed less than a house cat. A giant Tyrannosaurus rex, eating hundreds of kilograms of meat a week, simply had no way to keep that going in a starving world. Move 2, go underground. A lot of the mammals and small reptiles that survived shared one trick: they could hide. Burrowing underground or sheltering in logs, cracks and caves protected animals from the heat of the falling debris and from the wildfires racing across the land. Being underground also meant you weren't standing outside in freezing temperatures during the impact winter. The animals that had a hole to run to had a much better shot than the animals that had nowhere to go but open ground. Move 3. Eat almost anything. Fussy eaters lost. Animals that could only eat one kind of leaf or one kind of prey ran out of options fast once that specific food disappeared. But animals that could eat seeds, roots, insects, dead plants, or basically whatever was left lying around had a much longer runway. Seeds turned out to be especially important, because seeds can sit in the dirt for months or even years without rotting, quietly waiting for the sun to come back. Animals that could dig up and eat old seeds had a hidden pantry that lasted long after every green leaf on the planet was gone. Move 4. Live in freshwater. Animals that lived in rivers, lakes and ponds had a surprising advantage. Freshwater ecosystems don't collapse as fast as ecosystems on land, because a lot of freshwater food chains run on dead leaves and rotting materials sinking to the bottom, not on live sunlight-powered plants. That means the food supply held up a little longer underwater than it did on land, giving freshwater animals like turtles and crocodiles precious extra time while everything on the surface was falling apart. Move 5. Keep yourself warm from the inside. This one matters more than people usually realize. Animals that could generate their own body heat instead of relying on the sun to warm them up had a real edge once the skies went dark and temperatures crashed. Feathers helped too. A layer of feathers works a lot like a blanket, trapping body heat in and keeping the freezing outside air out. It turns out a whole group of dinosaurs already had feathers, long before that asteroid ever showed up. Which brings us to the twist. Here's where this whole story turns over. We've been treating this as a story about extinction, animals losing the fight against an impossible disaster. But one branch of the dinosaur family tree didn't lose. It's still here. Scientists have known for a long time that birds are not just related to dinosaurs, they actually are dinosaurs, in the same way that you are a mammal. Birds evolved from small, feathered, two-legged, meat-eating dinosaurs, the same family group that included fierce hunters like Velociraptor. By the time that asteroid hit, some of these small feathered dinosaurs already looked and lived a lot like modern birds. They were small, they could eat seeds. Some could dig or hide in dense cover, and they already had feathers keeping them warm. In other words, this one branch of the dinosaur family had already been quietly practicing every single survival move on this list for millions of years, before the disaster ever happened. They weren't lucky, they were ready. So when people say the dinosaurs went extinct, what actually happened is that every non-bird dinosaur died out, while the bird branch of the dinosaur family kept going and going and going for another 66 million years, right up to today. Every sparrow, every crow, every pigeon on your street is a dinosaur, walking around in a world that no longer has any idea it's looking at one. Think about what that means. The most famous mass extinction in the history of Earth didn't actually wipe out the dinosaurs. It wiped out almost all of them, and the ones who made it through are still outside your window right now. Still small, still eating seeds, still keeping warm under a coat of feathers, exactly the way their ancestors did on the worst day this planet has ever seen. So here's what I keep coming back to. On one side of that day you've got a Tyrannosaurus rex, enormous, powerful, at the very top of the food chain, with absolutely no way to survive what was coming. On the other side you've got a small feathered creature the size of a pigeon, not powerful at all, just quiet, small and flexible enough to make it through the dark. And the second one is the one whose family is still flying around today. Being the biggest, strongest thing in the room turned out to matter a lot less than being able to adapt when everything changed at once. The lesson from the worst day in the history of life on Earth wasn't strength, it was flexibility. So, next time a bird lands on your windowsill, that's not just a bird, that's a dinosaur that survived the end of the world. What do you think? Could you have made it through that day 66 million years ago? Let me know in the comments. Until then, see you soon.